Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2026 NASA Annual Day of Remembrance. My name is Thad Altman. I'm President and CEO of the Astronauts Memorial Foundation. I'd like to ask that you stand for the presentation of colors by the Brevard County Sheriff's Office Honor Guard, followed by the singing of our national anthem by Teresa Giroa of the Brevard Symphony Orchestra.
Stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. For the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please retire the colors. I'd like that you ask that you remain standing for the invocation led by Reverend John Brito Antony, pastor of St. John's the Evangelist Catholic Community in Viera, Florida.
Let us pray. Loving and eternal God, creator of the heavens and the earth, whose glory is proclaimed in the vastness of space and whose care embraces every human life, we come before you today in reverence and in remembrance. You have endowed the human minds with limitless power to explore beyond the confines of our surroundings. As we pass to reverence those men and women astronauts who gave their lives to humanity's pursuit of knowledge, discovery, and hope. We are filled with gratitude, Lord, for their sacrifice. Lord God, we entrust these sons and daughters into your loving mercy. May they rest in your eternal peace, and may their memory continue to inspire wonder, humility, and a profound respect for both human ingenuity and the sacredness of life. Comfort, O God, the families, friends, and colleagues who still carry their loss. Strengthen all who serve in exploration, science, and discovery, that their work may always be guided by wisdom, integrity, and a deep responsibility toward one another. As we remember the past, renew in us a spirit of hope for the future. Teach us to learn from sacrifice, to persevere through failure, and to seek truth, not for pride, but for the good of all humanity. Bless this gathering. Bless the work of NASA. Bless the mission of the Astronauts Memorial Foundation, which began 40 years ago, helping us to keep the memories of these our fallen astronauts alive. And bless all who strive to explore your creation with awe, care, and reverence. We make this prayer in humility and gratitude. Amen.
Thank you, Father. Every year, at every NASA center throughout the country, we gather. We gather to remember our fallen astronauts, to learn, to be inspired, and to endeavor to keep their dream alive and renew our commitment to human space exploration. Thank you for being here. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge some of our honored guests here in attendance. And I'd ask that you hold your applause till after I complete the introductions. And you may be seated, yes. First, I'd like to introduce or recognize Bob Cabana, Bonnie Dunbar, and Jen Davis, all astronauts here in attendance today. And from the NASA Kennedy Space Center, I'd like to recognize Mr. Kelvin Manning, Deputy Director, Jennifer Kuntz, Associate Director, Mr. Bert Summerfield, Associate Director for Management, Trey Carlson, NASA KSC Chief of Staff, and many, many other NASA guests, employees that are here supporting this event. From the AMF Board of Directors, I'd like to introduce our Chairman, Kathy Scobie-Fulgham, recognize our immediate past Chairman, Cheryl Chaffee, our Vice Chairman, Tabor McCallum, members Denise Coleman, Karen Bassett-Stevenson, and Kevin McEwen. From the Astronaut Memorial Foundation Board of Advisors, Dr. Jan Davis. Co-founders Alan Hellman and Randy Barrage, Bob Seek, Lowell Grissom, John Tribe, Laura Shepard-Churchley, Martha Chaffee, and Joseph Mayer. We also have with us special guest Ray Lugo, the CEO of the International Space Station National Lab. We have some special guests representing the Teachers in Space program, the initial program that was so dear to the Challenger program that we recognize the 40th anniversary here today, is Bob Valou, who are with us today, and Bob Forrester. I'd like to ask for them to stand if they're here. think that they are recognized. Yes, thank you for being here. I'd like to recognize some of the representatives that we have here from our public officials. We have representatives from Congressman Mike Herodopoulos' office, as well as U.S. Senator Ashley Moody. We have Lisa Cullen, the Brevard County Tax Collector, Rob Feltner, Brevard County Commissioner, and Mayor Steve Osmer from the city of Satellite Beach. Now you can applaud. I'd like to introduce our first speaker and personally thank him for his commitment to the mission here at Kennedy Space Center. We certainly appreciate his leadership and his willingness to come and address us. Kelvin Manning.
Good morning. At this year's NASA Day of Remembrance, we come together to mark 40 years since the loss of the Space Shuttle Challenger and the 7 remarkable crew members who perished on January 28, 1986, 73 seconds after launch. Though 4 decades have passed, the memory of that moment remains vivid in our hearts. It was a day that not only shook America, but also so many around the world. We remember Commander Dick Scobie, pilot Michael Smith, mission specialists Judith Resnick, Ellison Onizuka, and Ron McNair, payload specialists Gregory Jarvis, and Krista McAuliffe, the first teacher selected to fly in space. Each of them represented the very best of us: curiosity, courage, and the belief that exploration moves humanity forward. When Challenger was lost, the whole world mourned, and I remember that day as well. As an Air Force captain assigned to NORAD Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado Springs, I worked in the Space Surveillance Center where we were responsible for monitoring everything in low Earth orbit. There were feelings of tremendous grief and helplessness, and that continued. 1986 was a disastrous year for U.S. space launches. In addition to the Challenger tragedy, in April, a Titan 34D exploded just 8 seconds after liftoff from Vandenberg Air Force Base. And then less than a month later, a Delta 3914 rocket failed shortly after launch from Cape Canaveral. All of these revealed deep flaws in solid rotor, solid rocket motor, and electrical system designs, forcing major overhauls in the U.S. launch procedures and safety protocols. 6 years later, I was living a dream that I really never had as a kid. I was working for NASA right here at the Kennedy Space Center, seeing firsthand over the years how NASA undertook deep reflection and reform. Painful lessons became the catalyst for how the agency approached risk, responsibility, and safety. It was drilled into our heads. Yet, despite the deep reflection that brought forth change, tragedy struck once again with the loss of the Space Shuttle Columbia and her crew in 2003. Columbia, it holds a special place in my heart because in the mid-90s, I was the vehicle manager for that orbiter. And the loss and those hard lessons learned are memories I will carry forever. A reminder that even the best intended changes are fleeting if we allow a dysfunctional culture to reemerge. It serves as a permanent, humbling lesson that safe operations should not be taken for granted, and it reinforces that true, lasting safety requires continuous education and leadership accountability. NASA's history of Apollo 1, Challenger, and Columbia, and the loss of all of our fallen heroes, who we pay tribute today, changed how we see exploration. These immeasurable losses have reinforced the need to pause, to reevaluate, and to remain constantly vigilant. Now more than ever, as we enter into a new high-frequency launch era where launches are occurring here nearly every day, we carry the solemn lessons of immense loss and the knowledge of precious lives at risk. We carry in our commitment to safety and excellence to you, the astronaut families who are here today, whose loved ones' names forever shine on the Space Mirror Memorial just outside these doors. To say the dream is still alive, the awe of spaceflight and human achievement continues to make that dream of space education tangible for generations to come. We can look up at the night sky and know that the International Space Station has been continually occupied by astronauts for over 25 years now. And in the coming weeks, the Artemis II mission will send astronauts on a lunar flyby, making humanity's first return to the moon in over 50 years. It is a testament to the fact that while we have lost brave souls, we have never lost our way. The torch they carried now lights our path forward. So on this day, we honor the lives not only with remembrance, but with resolve. Let us continue to carry forward their spirit. May we continue to explore with care and curiosity. May we teach the next generation their names. And may the Challenger 7 and all those we've lost from our NASA family forever inspire us to reach upward with responsibility, with hope, and with an unshakable commitment to the pursuit of knowledge. So thank you very much. So what I'd like to do now is transition. Before the NASA Day of Remembrance video plays, I was asked to share remarks from our NASA Administrator, Jared Isaacman. Mr. Isaacman was confirmed by the U.S. Senate as NASA's 15th administrator last month on December 17th. Jared sends his regrets. He cannot be at this ceremony. Later this afternoon, he will lead the NASA Day of Remembrance observance at Arlington National Cemetery, 1 p.m., which will begin with the wreath-laying ceremony at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, followed by observances for the Apollo 1, Challenger, and Columbia crews. So, ladies and gentlemen, from the NASA Administrator, today is our annual Day of Remembrance. We stop, we reflect, and we recommit. We remember Apollo 1 and the pad fire that took 3 lives and forced us to rebuild safety from the ground up. We remember Challenger, that launch that ended too soon for 7 crew members, seeking to bring space into millions of classrooms around the world. And we remember Columbia, the reentry that claimed 7 more lives after a successful mission full of important science and discovery. We also remember those lost in training accidents. They gave their lives on the ground, in aircraft, and elsewhere, advancing their mission. Americans who never made it to orbit, but whose work made every successful flight possible. They aren't statistics. They were colleagues, parents, friends, and explorers who accepted the risk because they believed in what we were doing. And their sacrifices aren't in vain. They're why we improve safety, why we challenge outdated processes, and why we evolve our mission. We carry those hard lessons learned every day. But above all, we move forward because of them. They're why we're stepping forward with purpose into the skies, into orbit, and to the lunar surface, and eventually to the stars. We honor them by carrying their mission forward with safety and audacity. It is in their honor that we reach further, climb higher, and move faster. Thank you, Jared. If we can play the video.
We come together today to mourn the loss of brave Americans, to share the grief that we all feel, and perhaps in that sharing to find the strength to bear our sorrow and the courage to look for the seeds of hope. Remember them as they lived, bringing life and love and joy to those who knew them, and pride to a nation. The story of all human progress is one of a struggle against all odds. We learned again that this America, which Abraham Lincoln called the last best hope of man on earth, was built on heroism and noble sacrifice. It was built by men and women who answered a call beyond duty, who gave more than was expected or required, and who gave it little thought of worldly reward. Today, the frontier is space and the boundaries of human knowledge. Sometimes when we reach for the stars, we fall short, but we must pick ourselves up again and press on, despite the pain. Our nation is indeed fortunate that we can still draw on immense reservoirs of courage, character, and fortitude. Your families and your country mourn your passing. We bid you goodbye. We will never forget you.
I'm honored to welcome our keynote speaker, Colonel Robert D. Cabana, former director of NASA's Kennedy Space Center. As a NASA astronaut, Bob flew 4 space shuttle missions, STS-41, 53, 65, and 88, and has logged close to 1,000 hours in space. As director of Kennedy Space Center, he guided America's premier launch facility through a pivotal era of transition and renewed exploration, and much of the excitement we see here today at KSC, Bob helped lay the groundwork for. His leadership, integrity, and lifelong dedication to human spaceflight makes it especially meaningful to welcome him as we gather in remembrance today. Please join me in recognizing and welcoming Bob Cabana.
Thank you, Thad. So every year on NASA's Day of Remembrance, we pause to remember those crews who made the ultimate sacrifice in our conquest of space. The Apollo 1 crew on January 27, 1967, the Challenger crew on January 28, 1986, and the Columbia crew on February 1st, 2003. To those of us who are part of the NASA family, these crews are more than just names on a mirror. They were our friends, our family, and they will always be with us. This year marks the 40th anniversary of the Challenger accident. It's hard to believe it was that long ago. For those of us who were around at the time, the picture of those 2 solid rocket motors, their plumes going off in separate directions against that clear blue Florida sky that morning, is something that's firmly etched in our brains that we will always remember. I was just a young astronaut candidate at that time. I'd only been at NASA for about 7 months, but I got to know some of the crew personally. My Academy classmate and fellow astronaut Frank Culbertson was dating Judy Resnick, and they had us over for dinner. Judy was an amazing lady, bright, young, energetic, really smart, fun to be with. Mike and Jane Smith. Mike, he was a hero to me. He's what I aspired to be. He was a Naval Academy graduate, naval aviator, test pilot, shuttle pilot. That's what I was hoping to do. They had us over for a party at their house one afternoon, on a Sunday afternoon with a bunch of other folks, and just what an amazing man he was, and what a wonderful family. In the astronaut office, astronaut candidates, ASCANs, are like the lowest level. And I remember one morning walking into the office, and it was a Saturday morning, and coming out of the mailroom was El Anazuka, and El stopped me, and he says, "Bob, I know how hard it is when you get to a new place, finding, somebody to work on your car and all this stuff. I just want you to know I got a garage full of tools. If you ever need anything, please come on over." And the rest of the crew, they were all the same. They were just wonderful, wonderful people. In all cases, good men and women did their very best to prepare those vehicles and those crews for the missions that are represented on that mirror outside. No one who participated in the decisions that were made thought they were going to put the crews at risk. They all had good intentions. But good intentions are not enough in our business. We need good and accurate data so that we can make informed decisions. We need an environment where folks feel free to speak up without fear of retribution when things aren't right. And we need to be ever vigilant against complacency or the pressure to proceed when things aren't exactly right or not quite ready. The exploration of space has many risks associated with it. It is difficult, challenging work to launch humans into space and bring them home safely. And it is terribly unforgiving of mistakes. So now, 60, 40, some 23 years later, what does this day of remembrance mean to us? How can we best recognize and honor these crews? First off, we must realize that what we're doing is vital to the future of our nation, to our economy, and to our status as a world leader. It is in our DNA to explore and go beyond our limits and expand our knowledge and exploration of space. To stop would be a great disservice to these crews. It would mean they gave their lives for nothing. We must go on. It is what they would expect and demand of us. Second, we must dedicate ourselves to ensuring the mistakes of the past never happen again, that we are ever vigilant to prevent any new ones that put our crews at risk. Only through technical excellence in an environment of open and honest communication do we have a chance to ensure that's the case. I honestly believe we've learned from our mistakes, and we are better for them. It was evident in how we handled the issues with the Starliner when we left Butch and Sonny on the International Space Station for an extended period of time. And I believe it's evident in the processing of the Space Launch System in Orion as we prepare Artemis II for launch in a few short weeks, sending humans back to the moon once again. I can't guarantee that we won't lose another crew someday, but we must guarantee that we will do our very best to identify the problems within our control, to fix them with the best of our ability, and that everyone involved will be able to freely voice their concerns and be listened to. The exploration of space beckons us. It calls us to rise above the ordinary and everyday and do the impossible. We make it look commonplace, but it's not. It's not easy. The loss of Apollo, Challenger, and Columbia crews remind us of that on a daily basis. It's very good to take time to remember every year, to rededicate ourselves to the quest of exploration they were on, and to ensure we never forget the consequences of our inattention to detail in the conquest of space. So if you don't know those crews, take time to walk through Forever Remembered behind me, or go through A Rough Road Leads to the Stars out at the Saturn V facility. Learn about what amazing people they were. See firsthand what we went through and what we learned, so that they are not forgotten, and so that we do our very best to prevent it from ever happening again. Thank you all so much for being here today to honor these crews, to remember and never forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you for your service. At this time, I'm honored to welcome our next speaker, Allison Smith Balch, daughter of Challenger STS-51L pilot Michael J. Smith. Allison, we're so grateful that you're here to speak to us today. And the fact that you brought your family, we want to welcome your daughter Lauren, your brother Scott, sister-in-law Cynthia, your sister Erin, your mother Jane Smith Wilcott, your stepfather Hugh Dixon Wilcott, as well as your niece and nephew. You guys have come in force. And thank you for honoring us with your presence today at this incredibly important ceremony. Please welcome me in joining Allison Smith Balch.
Good morning, and thank you to everyone who has helped make today such a meaningful event, especially to the Astronauts Memorial Foundation for hosting this day of remembrance. Thank you for the care and the dedication you bring to honoring the crews of Apollo, Challenger, Columbia, and all the astronauts who have sacrificed their lives for the advancement of human spaceflight. Well, on January 28, 1986, my life and the lives of many of you in this room forever changed with the loss of the Challenger. Over the past 40 years, families, friends, educators, students, communities across the country have each been shaped by that day in personal ways. In that sense, we are all part of this story. Today, I was going to focus on a couple things the Challenger crew shared: a deep love of family and a love of learning, and talk a little about the hope that has grown from those values in the years since. Those values were not unique to my father. They were shared by every member of the Challenger crew and by the families who stood beside them. This love of learning continues today through organizations such as the Astronauts Memorial Foundation's Center for Space Education and the more than 30 Challenger centers across the country. Well, yes, my dad was an astronaut, but to my brother Scott, my sister Erin, and to me, he was just Dad. And to my mom, Mike, I was sitting on the stage just now thinking about the space that he left 40 years ago that's now filled with memories. And I would love to stand here for hours and tell you all those memories, but I don't have time. Well, Dad valued his time together with us. A story I love is that my mom has said that on Friday, often when Fridays came and his coworkers made plans after work, people knew what Mike Smith would choose. He would go home. That was simply, where he wanted to be. I saw that same priority in how he taught us. One of the ways that he spent time with us was through the lawn mowing business Dad helped my brother Scott start, and that later I joined. That was really my dad's classroom. It wasn't about making money, maybe a little, but mostly it was about learning how to work, how to take responsibility, how to keep going when things did not go perfectly. Through mowing lawns, we learned perseverance, and especially in that Houston heat. Whew. We learned how to deal with broken equipment, how to figure things out as we went, how to show up on time, how to do a job well. Dad showed us how to manage money, how to take care of our equipment, and especially how to take care of our customers. He even taught my sister Erin how to mow a lawn when she was 7. He was preparing. Well, my father loved woodworking and remodeling the homes we lived in over the years, an interest that my brother Scott also shares. That's his job today. This week, I asked Scott what his memories were about my dad teaching him. Well, Scott says that they didn't always build side by side, but that he was often our dad's helper. And through watching Dad, Scott told me he gained something deeper, and understanding that meaningful goals, whether as individuals or as a community, are achieved step by step through effort, patience, and working together. Whether it was remodeling our home, building a lawn business, or preparing for his adventure in space, Scott noted that Dad approached life with both a micro and a macro perspective. He understood that big accomplishments are built through small, intentional actions. I love that. Dad taught us effort matters, responsibility matters, communication matters, and that mistakes are part of learning. Learning is not something you memorize, it is something we live. That way of thinking was shared by the entire Challenger crew. They believed learning happened by doing, by working together, and by staying curious. After Challenger, the families faced a difficult question. How do you carry this forward? Well, the answer came through education, organizations, foundations, and programs that have shaped 40 years of achievement in STEM, space exploration, and learning. The mission did not end, it continues. I am deeply grateful for the way my dad encouraged learning in our lives day after day in very ordinary ways. And I know that he and every member of the Challenger crew would love seeing the impact of what has grown from their legacy. Thank you for remembering our loved ones. Thank you for welcoming our families. On behalf of all the families, thank you to the Astronauts Memorial Foundation for this day of remembrance and for honoring lives that continue to shape the future. Thank you.
Allison, thank you so much for your remarks. And it makes me think of what Bob Cabana mentioned about going and looking at the exhibit here at Forever Remembered. And the exhibit, what your dad, some of the things that meant a lot to him, they came to my mind. And after the ceremony, you can come back. It's really worth looking at. NASA just did a wonderful job in preparing that memorial. I'd now like to recognize some of the other family members that we have with us here today in presence attending our event. First, I'd like to recognize Kathy Scobie Fulgham, daughter of Space Shuttle Challenger Commander Dick Scobie. Karen Bassett Stevenson, daughter of Charles Bassett. Martha Chaffee, widow of Apollo 1 astronaut Roger Chaffee. Cheryl Chaffee, daughter of astronaut Roger Chaffee, also of Apollo 1. Lowell Grissom, brother of Apollo 1 astronaut Gus Grissom. We also have Evelyn Husband Thompson, Bill Thompson, daughter Laura Husband, and Matthew Husband, honoring Space Shuttle Columbia STS-107 Commander Rick Husband. Tal Ramon, son of Columbia STS-107 payload specialist Elon Ramon. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'd like to honor all of the 25 fallen astronauts who are represented on our wall here at the National Space Mirror Memorial. Congress has designated this memorial as our national memorial for fallen astronauts. First, Theodore C. Friedman. Charles A. Bassett. Elliot M.C. Jr. Roger B. Chaffee. Virgil Gus Grissom. Edward H. White II. Clifton C. Williams, Jr. Michael J. Adams. Robert H. Lawrence. Gregory B. Jarvis. S. Krista McAuliffe. Ronald E. McNair. Ellison S. Onizuka. Judith A. Resnick. Francis Dick Scobie. Michael J. Smith. Manley L. Sonny Carter, Jr. Michael P. Anderson. Donald David M. Brown. Kalpana Chwala. Laurel Blair Sultan Clark. Rick D. Husband. William C. McCool. Elon Ramon. Michael T. Osbury. Please rise for a moment of silence in honor of our fallen astronauts. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing as our Reverend John Brito leads us in the benediction prayer.
When we look at the stars, we will think of you and your families, President Ronald Reagan. Eternal and loving God, as we conclude this time of remembrance, we lift our hearts in gratitude and reverence for the lives of our nation's fallen astronauts who gave themselves in service to discovery, learning, and hope. 40 years later, we still remember. We remember courage that reached beyond fear, dreams that stretched towards heaven, and a sacrifice that forever marked our nation and our world. They reached for the stars and left us the courage to keep reaching. Bless the families who carry both pride and sorrow, the friends and colleagues whose lives were forever changed, and all who continue the work of exploration with humility and care. May their loss remind us that every life is precious, every calling sacred, and every moment a gift. Grant us the wisdom to learn from the past, strength to honor truth and responsibility, and hope that lifts our eyes beyond tragedy toward a future shaped by compassion, integrity, and peace. As we depart from this place, may we go forth renewed in purpose, steadfast in memory, and united in our shared humanity. May our exploration never cease, and may the spirit of our fallen heroes continue to inspire generations of astronauts to come. May peace dwell in our hearts. May courage guide our steps. May your blessing rest upon us now and always. Amen.
You may be seated. I want to thank our partners here at Kennedy Space Center at NASA for helping make this program possible, as well as Delaware North Space Center Visitor Complex, our Astronaut Memorial Board, and our staff who's worked diligently to help make this happen. I'd like to close and having the Bavard Symphony Orchestra perform America the Beautiful, and afterwards we will proceed over to the memorial itself. Please remain seated while our family members, special guests, lead the processional over to the memorial following the wreath. So I'd like to ask them to come up now and we begin that processional. And once they reach the door, we can follow them to the memorial. And as you're going by, feel free to grab a flower that we can place on the fence afterwards. It's a tradition that we have.
Hey guys, I got a live camera here.
I'd like to have a moment of silence prior to the playing of taps. Again, thank you for being here, and please feel free to stay and mingle and place your flower here in front of the memorial fences. It's been a great honor having you here today.